I feel like I'm aging into my personality as well. Like I need to get old because I've been 80 since I've been like, 8, right? I'm just kind of an old person. So I'm excited to get old, point being.
Yeah, I feel like you got to find those hobbies that you get better as you keep getting older.
Yeah,
so then you still have something to look forward to as you become older.
Yeah. Also, someone fact check me on this one, but I saw people who play paddle sports live longer and they are healthier as they grow older. So, correlation causation thing, I don't know, but there is some pretty significant evidence to show that people who play like tennis, pickleball, ping pong, things like that, actually live longer, and golf is in that category. So I think I saw someone posted, like, if you're a golfer, you live on average 5 to 7 years longer than the normal person. But I mean, that makes sense because if you're a golfer, you're probably out walking every day. So, and that's like a big thing in like the blue zones, which recently, random fact, I saw some blue zones got debunked. Do you know what a blue zone is?
It's just where people live longer, right? Statistically.
Yeah. But I just heard though that some of these blue zones aren't actually blue zones. It was tax fraud. So people were collecting government checks for dead relatives that had been dead for a while. And 2, no one was really keeping records that well, like in the Mediterranean, like Greece and Italy. No one was really keeping records. Like, they were just like, yeah, maybe I was born in the 20s. Maybe I was born in, 1918. I don't. So a lot of the data was actually
can't trust anything these days. No. There's always a counterpoint. Can't trust anything.
You can't trust anything, man. Okay, let me do an intro for this show. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mid Curve. Don't know what episode it is, doesn't matter, but we're here with a crowd favorite, Lil Perp, otherwise known as Chris, otherwise known as the Godfather of Drift, otherwise known as the Riz, the Rizzler, the real Rizzler. Today, this is already off to a good start. Today, this episode is going to be, it was going to be a special episode because we were going to have, the Godfather of Miami, Zano himself, on this podcast, but he bailed at the last second. So we're not gonna dog on him too hard. He's busy, man. He's got things to do. But today, I think we don't really have an agenda for it. It's just going to be a Thanksgiving Day podcast. We're just going to chill. We're going to hang out. We're going to invite you to our table, and you can listen to us talk about the most random stuff that we're interested in. Of course, we'll talk about the port and Solana and all that, but I don't know. I think we just
Uncle Knox, Uncle Perp, just shooting the shit at Thanksgiving Day dinner. You're at our table. Pull up a chair.
Pull up a chair. Pull. You know what? I like the energy we have going on already. And what's funny is, I gotta turn this. I have a space heater on down here, and it's getting way too hot. What's funny is, my nickname is Old Uncle Jay, or Sweet Uncle Jay, to all my nieces and nephews. And even in college, I used to call myself Uncle Jay all the time.
You got that old soul energy.
I got that old soul energy. I was saying, I've been 80 since I've been like 6 years old. Like I'm just a curmudgeon, and I like that. I like being unhappy. It's a good way to live. Anyway, let's jump into some of the stuff we want to talk about today. What do you want to kick it off with? Oh, by the way, I have a game we should play at the end of this call, called Overrated, Underrated. I'm sure you can infer what the game is.
Controversial.
Yeah, but let's kick it off. What should we talk about first? Should we talk about a book?
Yeah, let's cue up the Rick Rubin book.
Okay, let's cue up the Rick Rubin book. I got it right here. The Rick Rubin book. Chris and Zano are reading this book right now. I don't know. Have you guys finished it?
I finished it. Zano reads slower than me, so I don't know where he's at.
Shots fired.
You can't defend yourself if you're not here.
Zano catching strays already. It's okay. But anyway, Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin, one of the greats, one of my favorites. Chris, what is this book about? Let the people know.
Yeah. So Rick Rubin, like a really famous producer, would you call him a producer?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, one famous producer, worked with a lot of great musicians, on a lot of great songs, and so he's pretty old now. You've probably seen him with like he looks like a crazy old monk, um, and I would say he's kind of trying to lay out his philosophy on creativity and art in a way that's like makes you reflect on your own process. Um, I think it's one of those books where you like read a couple chapters at a time, and it just makes you think, and you want to actually read it slowly versus really fast. Um, and I think I guess he doesn't explicitly say this, but he's definitely really inspired by like Eastern spirituality, like Taoism and Buddhism. And he has this like almost perspective of like a kind of like effortless type approach to creativity where you need to let a lot of things come to you, and it's about like unblocking yourself in the process and letting it happen. um, and so I really like just the way he kind of slowly walks you through his philosophy um, on being creative, on like finding your creative side. And I think even though it's a book about art, I think like startups and entrepreneurships is a creative process. And in that sense, I think is really useful. Just thinking about both like your own creative process and doing a startup, and also how you manage other people's like creative process as well. Because a lot of managing is like making sure people can do good work, right? And so you need to tap into that.
Yep. Yep. So I have a lot to say on the creative process, but I'll hold off for a second. What's your favorite part of this book so far? I mean, wait, you said you finished it?
Yeah, I just finished it.
Okay, so what was your favorite like key thing that you pulled, key little nugget of wisdom that you pulled out that you really love?
It's a good question. I think I like the way he talks about kind of like the source. He calls it the source,
Mm-hmm.
which is this idea that like the universe is kind of like a creative process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the artist needs to basically tune in to the source, and it's all around us at all times, even the simplest things. But it's like our mental models, our narratives, our like frames of reference can like basically block it or make
Mm-hmm.
it or like get us stuck in only one perspective of the source. So I think a lot of the things he talks about is kind of like unblocking yourself to see different perspectives and to like let that inspiration from the source hit. And I think that is pretty that's pretty like Buddhist coded or like Taoism coded, which I think is pretty cool. But he's not like saying like, oh, you need to be like a Buddhist, you know, he's kind of putting in these very simple terms that anyone can understand. So I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. What about you?
Um, before I get into like my thoughts on this, I'm sure you've seen the clip. It's one of my favorite clips of his, where he talks about everything you do being an offering to God. And so to like do it to the best of your ability, which is actually very biblical. But how, like, what do you think about that, and how does that relate? Because you're saying he's like very Taoist or Buddhist, but he has mentioned like giving it to God. Is he calling the source God?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what he believes in, but I think he's like kind of more like agnostic on like one
Yeah,
tradition. He kind
got
of
it.
just thinks of like the universe as something bigger.
Hmm.
So I think when he says God, yeah, he probably means the source or just this idea of like the universe is greater than us.
Hmm.
And that's another thing I like the book is very like spiritual coded without being like too in your face. But you
Hmm.
can tell he thinks of like creativity and art as kind of this spiritual way of being.
Hmm.
Um, so in some ways, it's like also a book of like how do you live a fulfilling life, and like tap in to like the art that'll like make you like appreciate life. So I also thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh man, where do I start on this? I think, first of all, I think it's really interesting the way that he thinks about creativity, because it's like also over the years how I've thought about creativity, and I come to my own conclusions on this type of thing. But I think it is very important. So like I've started a few small businesses, like I've said on the pod before, and um, being creative isn't being creative. People generally think of as in like art or music, like music, art, painting, whatever. But actually being creative is just like, looking at different problems from a different perspective, pulling something out of chaos and ordering it in its proper way. And that chaos, I think, exists outside. of it's exogenous to like the human itself. So yeah, like the ancient Greeks, they believed that there was these goddesses of creativity, and like you just had to channel that, like whatever they were telling you. Carl Jung talks about this a lot, and he's one of my favorites, kind of where I come from when it comes to this stuff. But one of his main students wrote this book called The Origin and History of Consciousness, which I think I sent to you. But essentially that they believe that consciousness was, again, separate from the self. It was this external thing that you kind of acquired, and it would imprint truths subconsciously into the art that you create. So people, like, let's say people were just like making cave drawings or whatever, and they just thought they were drawing art, but there was actually truth in those drawings that that humans needed to survive and, you know, push humanity forward. And that kind of stuff is imprinted in like poetry and music and all this other stuff that we do. But again, it's kind of like it's like the conscious and subconscious doing it itself, right? Which I think is like a cool way to look at it. So now moving into like when I've, you know, done commercials or just any kind of movie or video or whatever, you always go in with an idea, but my ideas are loosely held because I think that the thing itself will tell you what it is, basically. So you go in with like just a broad overarching loose idea, and then like as I start editing it every time, it's like, oh, this is something totally different. This is what it wants to be, which is kind of a cool thing. And like you're just kind of like working with it and letting it flow. Now, I would take that a step further myself personally, and I think that the conscious, and I think Jung probably would say this too, but conscious is actually directly, maybe it's not the conscious, but I think conscious is a spark of the divine. It was gifted to us by God himself, and it's like a piece of God. So that's how I think about it. He goes even further and he talks about this, like the shadow, and like that's your ability to, or your capacity to be malevolent, and the shadow is actually tied directly to hell, and like consciousness is tied directly to heaven. So there's like these really interesting things that he talks about. Anyway, that I won't go into now, but yeah, that's how I think about creativity. I think creativity is like a gift from God. And I think that we have like this spark of God, or like, you know, in scripture it says he created us in his image. So it's like you have this spark of God in you, that therefore you are created because he is a creative mind. And like, so you draw on that inspiration and stuff all the time. And sometimes it just comes and you're just like the conduit for what you're doing. Now, anyway, so that's how I think about creativity. And there's like a million rabbit holes you could go down.
Yeah, I feel like the book kind of talks on that as like you have like this conscious that's like kind of like the gatekeeper or the editor or this thing that's like seemingly in control, but it often can like block the creative process because it's just like one way of interpreting things. Yeah. And so a lot of the book is like just like different stories or different ways of thinking about like kind of unlocking, letting your subconscious or unconscious or whatever like manifest like what the art wants to be or what the piece wants to be versus like top down forcing it to be a certain thing, which I think is pretty useful. Just like if someone like, you know, you're unconfident, like what is the creative process like? I feel like hearing it from someone who's so clearly creative in simple terms, like can help you feel more comfortable with just like trusting yourself to be like, oh, I don't need to have everything laid out up front. Yeah. I can just go with the flow. And if this feels right, like that is creativity. It's like trusting your gut and your intuition.
100%. But I think there's an important distinction there between like the conscious itself blocking the creativity or the ego. I think it's actually the ego that blocks the creativity. The conscious is what is like tapped into this chaos. And the chaos being just like this infinite amount of choices or decisions, or I guess I can't think of a term right now, but like this infinite ability to mix all these things together to create something. The conscious is what's tapped into that, and that's kind of like your tie to that thing. What blocks it is actually the ego. And so like your pride, your ego, yourself thinking, one, like you said, I don't think I'm creative enough to do that. Or two, like I just can't do that. I don't have the skills or the ability to do that. Or three, like I want it to be this way and set that in stone. Because then like the conscious might be pulling in all these thoughts, and your ego saying, no, that's not the way I thought it should go. And this goes for life in general, right? It's like the ego is telling you lies all the time. And that's kind of that's a whole nother rabbit hole. And there's actually a good movie that Guy Ritchie did on this. What's it called? It's about chess. Jason Statham's in it. I think it's called Revolver. That's what it is. So there's a movie called Revolver, and he deals with this topic. And it's like critics said it was one of his worst movies. Like it actually almost put him out of business. But I think it was a great movie if you understand what he was trying to get across. So I would highly recommend watching it if you're interested in this stuff. And actually at the end, he has like all the psychologists and philosophers that they interviewed to like kind of do research for the movie. He has them talk about what they were actually trying to say. And it's pretty fascinating. Anyway.
I definitely, I try to remind myself of that a lot. It's like, it's very easy to be like, I'm X type of person. And I do this thing because I'm X type of person. Like for me, it's like, I'm a developer or a CTO, and this is what I'm good at. And this is like my lane. It's like, certain tangential things that I could still be good at, I'll just rule out because I'm like, oh, well, I'm not that type of person. And it's funny because I started to learn coding late. Like I started coding when I was like 21. So there was a period in my life where I didn't think of myself as a coder or a dev or whatever. And I was able to basically be like, no, I can be this thing. And then when you get older, you start being like, oh, I've found my niche. This is who I am. And you gotta be like, no, like I can still like learn new things. I can still do these other things. Like if anything, it's like people's expectations of you. You start letting them like kind of loop back and be your own version of yourself, and then you limit yourself. So it's really important to like, try to like leave your ego at the door and just like come at things fresh and not limit yourself.
That's completely accurate. I thought about this a lot actually in middle school, like late elementary school, middle school. I just started questioning like, okay, they're saying life has to be lived a certain way. You have to do a certain thing. It's like pick a lane and do this or that. And I just couldn't get on board with that. I couldn't believe it. So in my life, one thing has like led to another. And basically anytime a door opens, I just kind of follow it. And in my mind, I just gave my life to God. And I'm like, all right, whatever you want to happen, I'm just going to like follow that path, no matter what that is. So at the beginning, like I was in finance. Didn't like finance. I loved working out. I loved the gym. So I like opportunities popped up and I opened a gym. And then through the gym, I got into like researching coffee and caffeine and the effects of it on athletic performance. And I started to fall in love with coffee. Opportunities started opening. So I started a coffee shop. And people would tell you like, oh no, you can't roast coffee. Like you don't know how to do that. And they're like super gatekeeping. It's like a super gatekeeping community. I was like, screw that noise. So I figured out how to roast coffee, started importing coffee, became a huge like coffee importer and roaster here on the West Coast, built that business up, sold it, moved on to the next thing. And so it's like, I love the idea that in this life, you can do many things. If you have the ability to like lock in and grind on it. Like you can become good at many different things. You don't always have to just choose one path. So I guess the path that like I chose was just, being, I guess, an entrepreneur for lack of a better term. Right. But I like that you like found coding and like late in life and then you became that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do that for the rest of your life. Right. You find something else you fall in love with, like go down that path. I don't know.
I agree. I think also cool thing about startups and like entrepreneurship for the founders and the early employees is it just like makes that so obvious that it's like there's no bounds or boundaries where it's like, oh, like you only have this job. You're only going to do UI coding and you're only going to do this. Like it's so chaotic and it's so new. Basically, you need everyone to just be putting on all these hats. And it's just like a glaring like it's just glaring that you have to do whatever it takes, you know. And I love like the early drift people who it's like, yeah, they're like a UI engineer, but then they'll go like hire another engineer, or they'll like hop in Discord. Like they just are like, you know, they do all these different roles. And I think like, yeah, a big part of being successful in a startup is having a group of people who don't have egos of like what they can and can't do.
That's right. That's right. Or have the ego that's telling them they're too good to do something. Right. That's a big problem. It's like, oh no, I'm too good to like jump in Discord and answer questions. You need the people who are just like down to like do whatever it takes, right? Ride or die type people.
Exactly. Yeah. That too. Do not sexy things.
Yeah.
Which maybe is the opposite of art, but sometimes.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, let's talk about like one of your kind of newest endeavors, which is the port. Can you I mean, shill that a little bit, man. It looks like you guys are doing cool stuff over there.
Yeah, so the port started with Zano, obviously from Jito, and then Justin from DKS, and then Zano's wife also helping us out a ton. So I feel like she doesn't get enough love. But basically, we just lived in Miami for a couple of years now. A lot of Solana people are down there. We made like a lot of friends, and it's just like kind of clear that there is a budding Solana community and crypto community, but just like it was fragmented, no clear watering hole. Like, where is everyone going to meet up? So it's just like almost kind of obvious. Like, all right, we just need to secure a space and like provide a place for this community to get tighter. So yeah, the port just came out of like the already like budding community down in Miami and just kind of solidifying that. So worked with Solana Foundation to get it off the ground, and now we have about 30 members.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Are these 30 full-time members, like just working out of there full-time?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any given day there's gonna be less than that because like in practice, a lot of people don't want to go to the office every day. Like they want to go there like once a week, maybe, or like they want to show up when like everyone else is there.
But hold on, are these 30 different projects, or is it like a couple of people are working on one, so you have like maybe 15 projects in there or something like that?
It's probably like 20 to 25 projects. Like it's usually like there's one person from a team because like everyone's just remote.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of teams in there. We're starting to get more non-Solana people too. And yeah, I think yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say that's actually pretty cool because you guys haven't been going for that long, and you have like basically 25 projects working out of an office in Miami. That's sweet.
Yeah, we just got started. I want to say like August. It's been growing pretty fast. I mean, again, it's like we're just tapping into this like kind of like native energy, and then we're just providing a place for people to meet up and have events and like work out of when they want to, you know. So it's like it's pretty easy. It's just like a lot of startups, it's just about like doing some of the unsexy work, like getting the entity set up, finding a building, like doing these things that like there's a bit of a coordination problem. So luckily, like we're Zano and I are like close with Solana Foundation, so it's like easy to get their support, and like we just got the ball rolling. And now I would say it's like the community itself is like adding a lot of the energy. Like there's just like people, and they're excited to be in Miami, to be building tech. You know, like Miami's definitely like it's like an ascending tech state, right? Like it's still nascent, obviously. Like it doesn't have the network effects of somewhere like SF or New York, but like a lot of people want to make it happen. So we're just trying to almost help that like reflexive process by like giving people a place where they can connect.
Nice. Hold on. I think you're making me nauseous moving like that.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm watching you. I'm like, I'm gonna puke over here.
I'm too excited talking about the port.
I know and I get it. It's hard to not rock when you're in a lazy boy in your mom's basement. But
just trapping out my mama's basement talking about the port.
That's amazing.
But yeah, Art Basel is coming up too, which is like big Miami week for art. So having a big port party, a lot of like cool crypto people are coming into town. So that's going to be our time to kind of like show how fun the Miami community is too. So
Yeah.
Really excited for that. Zano, of course, will be DJing, so should be a good time.
Man, he loves music. I love how much Zano loves music. I just like people who are a little like autistic about what they love, right? It's it's awesome. I mean, because I'm that way. Like if I find something that I absolutely love, I'm just all in, go down the rabbit hole. Like golf happened to bite me, last year, and now it's like every day golf. Think about golf, watch golf, YouTube and stuff. Like get up super early and golf before work type thing. So I love that Zano's like music. Like when we go do our offsites, he brings in decks. He's just sitting there like making music by himself, just for everyone. I don't know, it's just cool. Okay. Yeah, man, that is awesome for one. That I'm glad to hear that like the port's just crushing it. We should definitely do some stuff. I think I want to do, like I was telling you, I don't know if we were on air or off air, but I want to do like some workshop style stuff where people like can learn soft skills or just like start picking the brains of like guys who have done it, who have built successful projects, etc. So maybe we do some live stuff at the port and hold like a 1-day kind of conference thing where people can come in and give a little presentation and everyone can chat, and it'd be like kind of like an intimate setting where you get access to like some of the best guys in the space. I think would be kind of cool.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the main use case for the port, is like just solving the coordination problem of getting smart people in the room at the same time and like sharing knowledge, networking, etc.
Yep. Agreed. Cool, man. I think also I'm a little jealous that you guys are in Miami, and just for the weather, because it seems like you guys have good weather almost all the time, except if there's a hurricane coming through. But like here, it's gloomy for like the next 3 or 4 months. We're gonna have rain and gloom, and so that would be another reason for me to come down and just hang out at the port, go to the beach, work out, go golfing. Florida is a huge golf state, so it would be amazing.
Sounds like you need to move, brother.
I know. The problem is we live close to the family and we have kids, so it's definitely hard when you got little ones, 2 years old and with a baby on the way. It's hard to move, but yeah. You know what? So random story. This never used to bother me. Like the weather never used to bother me until we lived abroad for like 2 years, and we accidentally chased summer for 2 years. And that was when I realized, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice, like perpetual summer. And then we came back, and I'm like, oh man. But also, there's something to be said about like snowy Christmases and stuff like that.
Yeah, the whole seasonality thing is kind of cope. Like, honestly, you need 1 week of fall, 1 week of Christmas. Besides that, you don't want it. You don't need it for 6 months a year. You can get 2 weeks of it and be good.
You definitely don't need it for 6 months a year. I will give you that 100%. What I would like is I like sun, but I like cold. So I don't mind if it's cold outside. So what I like is like fall is great because it's still sunny out, it's cold. Winter here though is terrible. It's like rainy and whatever. You get a week. All you need is a week of snow. That's for sure. You don't need any more than that. Snow just complicates your life way too much. I don't even know how we got on this topic. This is way off topic, but just ranting about stuff.
Okay, we'll bring it back in. We'll bring it back in.
Reel it back in. Okay. So we're talking about founders. Talking about that was funny. Talking about builders. Let's get into some tips for founders and builders. Some advice. You are a seasoned builder at this point, right? Like, how long have you been running Drift? How long has that been up?
Seasoned.
Yeah,
been running a company for 3 years. This guy is seasoned.
In the startup world, in the crypto world, that is seasoned, my friend. Like, I mean, it's such a, like you said, it's such a nascent industry. Like 3 years is, I mean, that's a long time if you're building on, Solana. So anyway, give me, with everything you know now, what do you wish you would have known at the beginning?
Okay, I got one that's gonna bring everything full circle here for
Okay,
you.
let's
So
go. Let's
we
go.
like we had it all planned. Number one is you want to take care of your health, obviously, and if you're living somewhere with good weather year round, it's definitely going to help you stay in shape and stay focused. Obviously, it's not possible for everyone, but I feel like no matter what, you got to find a way to take care of your health because just like one on a day-to-day level, if you're working out and eating healthy, it's going to reduce your stress. Um, and I would say like overexposing yourself to stress will really like make you impatient and make your decision making worse. So a big part of like being a founder is just making good decisions, good big decisions, and making them well over and over again. So you really need to put yourself in the position to like be patient and not be like so pressed or tilted because like you're not taking care of your body.
Wow. What a professional. Just it was almost like we planned that one. No, but like I was saying offline, I truly believe that. Like I've been in health fitness, like both you and I played sports a lot growing up. And yes, the times I've been most efficient in life has been when I've been the healthiest, right? You just have energy, you feel good, etc. So I think, like I was telling you off air, one of the core tenets of Midcurve now is having the Midcurve Athletic Club, because like our overarching goal is to build better builders, get people on Solana, get people building. How do you do that? One, you need to give them education on like not only hard skills, but soft skills. And two, you need to give them education on staying healthy. And I totally agree with you. I think that is key. And like you said, if you live somewhere that's nice, it's much easier to motivate yourself to get out and like actually exercise. So I'm not shilling Miami, but you know, if it's
If you
not a
have the
bad spot,
option.
you have the option. For me, it would probably be more like Arizona. I would probably move to Arizona, except in the summertime. Then I would move back up to the Northwest because summers are nice here and the summers are miserable in the Southwest, but winters are great. So actually, I'm headed down to Arizona in January with the old man. We're gonna play some rounds of golf, and I'm gonna hang out with his the old boys, the Trad 5 boys.
You can smoke a cigar. Bitcoin's at 200K.
Yeah.
They're like, who's daddy now?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, what did your portfolio do last year?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, a solid 8%. No, that's pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, let me tell you about mine.
Yeah, pretty good for an old man. But you weren't in any dog coins, so you didn't put your clients in any dog coins.
Exactly.
Yeah. They asked me about it now. Actually, to be fair, like, okay, I'm not gonna just like rag on my dad and his friends on this podcast because honestly, my dad saw the light pretty early and he was buying Bitcoin at 6,000 and he bought Solana. He bought Solana even early on. The one that I showed them on that went bad was FTT. He did buy a bunch of FTT.
That's tough.
That one was tough. That one we wrote that one down to 0. That's fine. You know, it made up for it that, you know, he was buying Bitcoin at like, you know, 6K basically. But yeah, anyway, it's good times with the old guys. They're the best.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So let's move on to the next topic. Before I just like start, you know, running this thing. Do you have anything you want to talk about? We're at the Thanksgiving table, my friend. You can talk about anything. This is a safe space.
I guess the only thing I was going to add on what I just said is I think you should look after your longevity, but I think also you have to look after your team members' longevity. So there's always this like kind of pressure to like push your guys and your girls like harder because you need to get stuff done. And a lot of times people just go along with it, and then at some point it'll be like they'll get too stressed and then they break and they're like, I gotta get out of here. So I think you really want to be mindful of like creating that channel for people to tell you like, hey, this is too much. Because I think usually why good startups fail is because they're good people leave faster than they can get good new people. And the next thing you know, everyone that's good is gone and you can't rebuild that. So like I think as the manager, you really need to try to tap in and be like, okay, how are my people's energy? And sometimes you got to move slower and just let people recharge, because you're maximizing long-term growth, not just like today. And when you first start a startup, it's kind of like implicit, like, hey, we're gonna rip it right now. But like once you start getting a little bit of success, you got to make sure you give people the time to rest up, because they're not fungible and you can't replace them too fast.
That's true. People are non-fungible. That's a good quote.
Which is like obvious, but a lot of management the goal of management is to try to make people fungible.
Yeah.
But then there's the art of management, which realizes people are non-fungible and like handles that, even though it makes it harder to make decisions. So
yeah, there's theory and there's practice, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've consulted for a lot of startups in the tech space and crypto space, and even like Web2 space. And I've seen like all types of managers, and for sure, the people that are just like the people who are on that grind 100%, and maybe they have the ability to do that and not burn out because it's their thing. But they push their people to be like them. That never works out well. It lasts, a year or two, and then you start getting a lot of churn. So I definitely think there's, like in all things in life, there's a balance, right? Anyway, that's actually a really good point, and I'm going to clip that and put that on Twitter. So let's play overrated, underrated, because we're already at 40 minutes, and I feel like we could just keep rambling about stuff. But let's play overrated, underrated really quick, okay? So here's the game. I say something, you tell me overrated, underrated, okay? And it could be anything. All right.
Good. I feel like, did Tyler Coleman used to do this, or on
I don't know.
Conversations with Tyler, maybe?
I don't. The person that I saw do this was actually a golf podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he only did it once, but I was like, oh, that's a good game. I should steal that. Okay. Overrated, underrated. Thanksgiving Day turkey.
It's
a harder game. It's harder game.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the older you get, you realize there's certain like shibboleths that shouldn't be replaced because it's just almost a selling point. So it's definitely not overrated. Maybe rated or underrated. Yeah.
Wow, rated to underrated. Really?
I'm a tech bro, so I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna tear shit down. I don't need to respect tradition, but it's a good pattern that everyone gets together like once a year.
Okay, but I'm not talking about the pattern or like the getting together. Obviously, that is underrated. But I'm talking about the turkey itself.
Do you still have Thanksgiving if you get rid of the turkey, or is there like some?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, if you think that you could separate the turkey from Thanksgiving and everything else is the same, then overrated.
Yes,
just as like the primary meal or like the primary entree, it's overrated.
Yes, 100%. Thank you. Turkey is overrated in my book. I'm going to chalk that up to a win right there. But for a while, I just started bringing fried chicken to Thanksgiving. And then this year we're doing steaks and a little bit of turkey, smaller turkey for people who still want that. But we're going to do, my dad's cooking up steaks because I would rather have steak than turkey. I think turkey is the most overrated meat unless you do it a certain way. But most of the time, overrated. Okay.
My last 6 meals have been steaks, so
yeah,
I feel you.
Also, elk steak. Have you ever had elk steak?
No.
Okay.
Underrated?
Underrated, my friend. Completely underrated. And in fact, if you're gonna have elk steak, you got to go out and get the elk yourself. So, and we go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, grew up archery hunting for elk. You go out, get your own meat. It's about respect. You know what I mean? So anyway, we won't get into that whole topic yet. Okay, let's go on. Let's move on to the next one. Pickleball, overrated, underrated.
Oh man. I mean, I don't play it, so I gotta say overrated. And everyone's obsessed with it. Like, what is it's like easier than tennis or something? So like more people can play it. So it's gotta be overrated.
Do you play tennis?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Okay, I'm gonna go. Although pickleball is fun at this point, overrated. I'm with you on that one. But it is fun. It is fun. I like
I'm not
playing it.
really pro like making sports easier for the masses. Like it's not one of my agenda items. Even though I'm not good at pickleball, so like you saw me playing, you'd be like, "Why are you so cocky?" But
Yeah,
still, if I wanted to play something, I'd learn how to play tennis.
that's actually funny. Okay, let's get into some other stuff. So let me just go with Solana, overrated, underrated.
Jesus. I mean, externally by the masses, underrated. Internally, maybe slightly overrated. Like I feel like internally we need to maybe like put some work in, but externally, like the people who like are buying XRP or
Yeah.
talking about Ethereum, like definitely underrated.
Wow,
I can't say
that was a
straight underrated. That's
yeah,
too
yeah,
basic.
yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, for sure. That was a good answer. Also kind of a hot take. Okay, meme coins, overrated, underrated.
I mean, definitely in our circles, overrated. But I guess okay, the issue with meme coins, obviously some people do well on meme coins. I get why it's fun. But I think we'll look back on it and be like they're net wealth extractive. So it's
Mm,
like some people make it big, but it's kind of like it's definitely zero sum and
mm,
in ways that are kind of hidden during the mania. But I mean, all speculation is kind of like that. So you can say, why you single out meme coins, but I think there's a little on CD. There's a little too much like, oh, it's a populist narrative, like it's
mm.
for the little guy. Like honestly, the little guys are probably not doing worse than if they just held some of the majors. So in that sense, I feel like they're probably overrated. But I get if you just do it for fun with a small part of your portfolio, then I feel like that's cool.
Cool. That's a good answer. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. All right, last one. The port, overrated, underrated.
Definitely severely underrated. Ever major bid opportunity. I think Miami in general, definitely during COVID got hyped up. People then it didn't happen overnight, and some people were like, "Oh, haha, like Miami's not as big as you think it is." But I think all the tailwinds, like with remote work, um, and like everything moving online, like finance, etc. I think Miami's gonna like become its own hub, and it's like things always take longer than expected, like
Hmm.
than when you read them online. So,
I,
and I
I
think
think
I
my
think the port is just Miami beta. So.
okay. I mean, I would also agree. It's severely underrated. I think it's a really cool thing that not a lot of people know about yet. Yet. Um, but I think going back to the Miami thing, I think Miami has a branding problem because
Mm,
for us on the West Coast, you think of Miami and you think cocaine and Lambos and partying on the beach, right? Like that's all you
yeah,
really think of when you think of Miami. And when you think of Florida, you think of crackheads and alligators and just like the craziest stories. Like anytime anyone hears like a crazy story in the news, they're like, "Oh, that probably happened in Florida." It's like, yeah, it probably did. You know what I mean? Florida's a crazy
yeah,
place. But so I think Miami, what it really needs to do is like start some huge campaign on selling the city for like normal people, not people who just want to go, you know,
mm.
get coked out of their mind and, I don't know, maybe get arrested. I don't know. So
It does have a bit of a branding problem. Like even like there's a wellness community down there. People are just super
yeah,
fit,
yeah,
but that's not what you think about. You think about people partying, so you just assume everyone would be like actually unhealthy. So there's a lot
yeah.
of misconceptions. I do think the general like I think we're like we peaked on like kind of wokeism, and now the pendulum's swinging back to being more based. And I think that like there's people in New York and Chicago and these places that like are like gonna like feel more comfortable probably expressing their preference to be somewhere like Florida that is a
Mhm.
little bit unhinged.
Yeah.
So I think Miami benefits from the basoning that's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I respect Florida and I respect Miami for just being who they are. I think it's awesome. Oh, why is Zano calling me right now?
Yo,
there he is. There
what
he
up,
is.
boys?
What's up? How you doing?
What are y'all up to? What are you guys talking about?
What were we talking about? I think we were talking about Miami. Actually, we were shilling Miami.
Okay.
Where are
Justin
you
was
right now?
saying Miami has a advertising problem.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, so I said there's a branding problem with Miami because when especially us on the West Coast, think of Miami, all we think about is drugs and partying and meth heads and, you know, the greater Florida area getting abducted and being fed to alligators, that type of thing.
Yep.
And obviously it comes from like the shows that they make about Florida. But I was saying like I think Miami needs to do a little bit of a rebranding campaign and really show like what Chris was saying, you know, there's like a fitness community there. There's like now a new tech community there. There's all this stuff. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're seeing the evolution happen right now. I feel like, yeah, Miami needs to rebrand, but I think also just it actually changing will be part of that process.
Yeah.
I think that's happening right now. Is like it's becoming more of a tech hub. Like Miami Beach, our little circle in Miami Beach is completely different than what people think of South Beach. Like, people visit us and they're like shocked at how chill it is and how productive it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I know that about Miami because I know you guys. But if I didn't know you guys, I would not know this at all, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why we're in this pod right now. We're sharing alpha with the masses. There's someone out there in sad New York questioning their life, and we're gonna pull them down south, and they're gonna be tan correct.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's so small that I kind of don't really want to actually rebrand it. I kind of like what we got going on. It's like it's a sliver of land.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said, and Chris and I were talking about this earlier on this pod, but there's something to be said about living in the sun. I mean, there's just like a huge psychological factor to like seeing the sun for most of the year. And I think that does make you more productive, right? Because like here, just gloomy and depressing.
Yeah, I mean, you need to light up that third eye. That doesn't happen when there's clouds around.
You need to tap into the source, baby.
Sometimes I'll like walk outside and I'll see Chris out there just staring at the sun, like a sunflower.
Chris, do you stare into the sun? Is that
yeah, completely naked, of course.
Rick Rubin does that, doesn't he?
That's a Rick Rubin thing, yeah, I think.
Yeah. I think that's the first time I really heard of him outside of like what he had done professionally was that interview where he talked about going out into the sun just naked every morning. And the problem is like I have neighbors all over this place. If I walked outside naked in the sun, the cops would be called, you know, immediately. There's kids around out here. I can't do that.
You could walk around naked in Miami and cops would not be called.
That's pretty
we might be scaring people away now. Maybe we should chill out.
Yeah, that's why I came on. I didn't want you guys advertising it too hard.
It's like stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay. What? So Zano, we've talked about a bunch of stuff. Chris has talked about the port. We've talked about Memecoins and stuff. So actually, we were playing this game. And I'm going to get you in on this game really quick. We were playing this game called Underrated, Overrated. I give you a topic. You tell me if it's underrated or overrated. And Chris already answered some of these, so it'll be interesting to see if you guys have the same answer. All right, here we go. Underrated, overrated. We'll start with something easy. Thanksgiving Day turkey.
I think it gets a lot more hate. Like everybody I talk to hates it. So I bet Chris said overrated, but I'm going to say underrated.
Oh, okay. Okay, and we're specifically talking about the turkey, the meat itself, not like Thanksgiving. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll also guess. I'll guess what Chris had said too as part of this game.
Okay, so what did you say, Chris?
Well, first I said the symbolism of the turkey is underrated, and then I said the actual meat is overrated.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got deep. Classic.
Yeah.
Classic. I was a little more nuanced with it.
Okay, let's jump into the what we do type stuff. So meme coins, underrated, overrated.
Like a couple months, right now it's the consensus bet. So I think it's leaning more overrated, although I do still love the sector. Like, I still do love the thesis. I love Doge. I love Mudang.
Just
Love
talking his bags right now.
These are bags I do have, yes. But yeah, I'll lean. I think I'll lean slightly overrated because it's like the consensus trade now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, what'd you say?
I basically said overrated.
Yeah.
I think small percentage of portfolio makes sense, but probably net value extractive.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. It's just so easy to launch a token, and it's so easy to launch a token. But there's like really good coins like Lock-in, Lock-in, Chill Guy, Mudang, Doge. These are not overrated. So.
Oh man. Okay. Solana, underrated, overrated.
I don't think it's underrated. I don't think it's overrated.
So it's rated. You can say rated, I guess.
It's based. Yeah.
It's based. Oh, okay. Throwing a new one in there. Okay. Yeah. Just make it. See, this is classic Zano. He comes into a game where there's rules, and then he makes his own rules. You should see this guy at our offsite. It's like we try to do these Jito Olympics things, and this guy is just making up his rules on the fly as we go.
Well, yeah, I mean, because like fundamentally, that's what we've all done that's what crypto is, right? At a fundamental level. I'm gonna steal this from Chris, but basically, crypto's the new game, right? Like the previous game is like digital trading on the Nasdaq. Before that, it was paper trading. Before that, it was like actual commodities, like people actually going to a city center trading their cow for like something else, and then eventually you got derivatives. And then the quants came in, the CS guys came in, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to digitize this because we have an edge there, and that'll be the new game. And with crypto, it's like, all right, well, we're going to create a new game because that old game is too hard to get involved in. There's too many barriers. And we'll just create a new game. If everybody plays this new game, then we'll be the best at the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Agreed. All right, last one. The port, underrated, overrated.
Severely underrated. When people come to the port, it's like everybody that has come to the port loves the space, like the physical space, but also the symbolic nature of the port.
Yeah. What is that? What is that symbolic nature?
It's like it's what you were talking about earlier, like the rebranding of Miami. It's like kind of like a counter culture movement to what Miami was. Like the whole reason why we started the port was we wanted to create, we want to basically build out the Miami tech scene, and we believe that having a sort of like fixture in Miami helps that case a lot. Like people come down, they work out of there for the month if they're down for a month, whatever, and then they're like, oh, this is really cool. I'm like rubbing elbows with all these other smart founders. There's something going on here, and then you get some reflexivity there.
Yep. Agreed. Anything else you want to shill? Like Chris and I have been going for an hour. So anything else you want to shill before we pop off this call?
All right, let's see. Well, Chris got me on Bronze Age Pervert.
What is that? What is that?
You haven't heard of him?
No.
Okay. It's you might have thoughts on this, strong thoughts, but basically it's like a modern day like Nietzsche guy.
Okay.
The book itself, like whether you agree with the actual like fundamental philosophy, the book itself is very entertaining. It's like one of the most entertaining books I've ever read. It's like stylistically very unique. So Nietzsche kind of overcomplicates a lot of things, as do probably most philosophers. This guy basically talks like a caveman in the book. So it's like super entertaining.
That's pretty cool. So what's his core philosophy? If you could sum it up, give me the TLDR.
yeah, just fuck shit up. Don't let the world suppress your like. It's a book for men, really. So like, don't let the world suppress your masculinity. I mean, women could also probably benefit from reading it, but it's more like we're in these. Like the world's always trying to. If you think about this, the people that are in power can maintain that power structure as long as everyone else believes that they are the most powerful people and don't actually believe that they themselves on an individual level can arise to those powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically the book's like, well, this is happening. Don't let this happen to you, and just go out there and fuck shit up.
He's like, do you want to say any one last thing? And he's like, let me open the Pandora box.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need to do a follow-up on that one.
I think we might need to do a follow-up call on this because this is quite fascinating, and it's something that I'm also interested in, like the demasculinization. I don't know if that's a word, of men though over these last 50 or 60 years has been drastic, right? And so I don't know, do you guys read any Jordan Peterson? Not to open this also Pandora's box, but do you read JP?
Maybe.
Of course I have.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Jordan Peterson's whole thing, and I think the reason he connected with people or like young men so well is because he started talking about this type of thing, right? Like, do hard stuff, don't be afraid. Right. Like he's very Jungian, so it's like pick up your cross, and like bear your burden, like a man, basically. Like endure your suffering, choose your suffering, and endure it. Yep. And I think that resonates with, men especially, but it could resonate with anyone really. Because I think that there's there's something integral to the human spirit or human condition. Like suffering is integral to that, right? Like we were created to suffer, and I think we find joy and meaning in suffering for periods of time, not like all the time, but it like refines you as a human being. And this is like, it's also very biblical. They talk about this a lot in the old scriptures, but anyway. So yes, let's do a follow-up because I feel like this is a whole nother podcast. So we should do a follow-up on this book. I'll read it and we can chat about it.
Yeah, we should just do a power hour on cheap philosophy.
Zano just dropped in and started just dropping bombs. He's like, all right. Okay, I'm gonna make the last 5 minutes the most important 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I like the suffering point because it's like I think like we've all played sports, and part of the reason we like sports is because of how physically tired you get, right? You just like you feel amazing after a hard workout. And it's like that's the best I ever feel. That's the most centered and like grounded I ever feel is like after a hard training or like some sports session.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, over my lifetime, like my life hasn't been that hard. Obviously I've suffered like everyone else, but it hasn't been, there are times where like life just isn't really that hard for me. And I've been very fortunate, obviously. So I had to manufacture suffering, and I found that through mountain climbing. It's like climbing mountains is like one of the hardest things you can do. You don't have oxygen, you're exhausted, you're freezing cold, you're like moving up this mountain, you get to the top and no one cares. There's no one there, but you're like suffering for like 7 hours straight. And then you have to like, get like work your way down. Right. And so like I started doing that just to manufacture suffering in my own life to make me a better person. Now the next step is like, and this, man, again, whole nother conversation, but it's like getting married and then having a child. Yeah. It's like that's self-sacrificial. Both those steps are self-sacrificial, and they come with a certain amount of suffering. Let's be honest. Like you have to sacrifice the self, which is, a certain form of suffering to some people. Right. So like the evolution of yourself, like, to wrap this all up, takes suffering. But yeah, anyway, I'm not gonna keep knocking this door down.
I love that. I didn't know you mountain climbed.
Yeah, man. I mean, I kind of stopped a little before we had the first baby because so I grew up mountain climbing and rock climbing all over, and like in college, like hitchhiked all over the States and just climbed and stuff. And all my mountain climbing heroes died early, all of them. So it's like mountain climbing is a sport where if you're really going to push it, like you could be the best in the world, but if the mountain decides you're going to die that day, you're going to die that day. You just have no choice. So I kind of backed off a little bit.
It's a crazy sport. I've watched some videos on YouTube, and like the craziest ones are the guys that don't use any ropes. Just like freestyle climbing, basically.
Yeah. There's a few guys. So like those used to be my heroes. Like when I was growing up in college and stuff, like Dan Osman, Dean Potter. Dean Potter died climbing, like free climbing El Cap, but he would do it with a parachute and he would just let go at like 1,000 feet. And then he would like pull the chute, and he died. Uli Steck is like one of the greatest mountaineers ever. He would do these speed runs up the Eiger, and he died in the, I think he died in Nepal, like maybe like 5-6 years ago now. But I mean, he was like the best mountain climber in the world, and it's like he can climb any mountain easy, and all of a sudden he's just dead because it's like it just takes one wrong step or something to break loose or whatever, and you're just gone.
Anyway. It sounds shitty, but like, you know, that guy probably lived a hell of a lifetime within those short amount of years compared to like some dude that just kind of coasts through life and then eventually dies of dementia later on.
Yeah. I mean, he 100% lived that warrior life, you know, like they live their life the way they want. And if you're single, then that's fine. Like if I was single, I would be living that life, and I would just be pushing. Like honestly, I wouldn't be working. I'd be running around playing golf and climbing mountains and living out of my van. But if you have a family, it is selfish, in my opinion. Like Dan Osman, he had a daughter, and he was doing these like sketchy jumps with a static rope at like 800 feet. He was just jumping off cliffs with like a climbing rope and dropping 800 to 1,000 feet. And eventually the rope just snapped, you know? Yeah. I can send you the video, not like the death, but like his old jumps. You'll like this guy. He was a wild man.
Yeah, it's wild.
But anyway, yeah. All right, let's wrap this one up. Let's do the next one. Maybe we just talk about like Bronze Age stuff and JP on the next podcast.
All right, we'll do it naked in the sun.
Yeah, or we'll do it in a cold plunge.
Oh yeah.
See how long.
That'll print.
Yeah, that'll print. That'll
Kevin Hart's series. You've seen the Kevin Hart series?
Yeah. But I mean, obviously in Vegas, Zano, let's do a podcast. You, me, and Lucas sit around, talk, and then like we should also do some workout stuff, some mid-curve athletic stuff, workouts, and film it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
right, boys. It's always a pleasure talking with both of you. I love it. I look forward to these podcasts with you guys more than any podcast. But have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving. Peace, fam.